ॐ ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम् शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्।
ॐ श्री परमात्मने नमः। अथ द्वादशोऽध्यायः भक्तियोगः। अर्जुन उवाच एवं सततयुक्ता ये भक्तास्त्वां पर्युपासते ये चाप्यक्षरमव्यक्तं तेषां के योगवित्तमाः। श्रीभगवानुवाच मय्यावेश्य मनो ये मां नित्ययुक्ता उपासते श्रद्धया परयोपेतास्ते मे युक्ततमा मताः। ये त्वक्षरमनिर्देश्यम् अव्यक्तं पर्युपासते सर्वत्र गमचिन्त्यं च कूटस्थमचलं ध्रुवम् सन्नियम्येन्द्रियग्रामं सर्वत्र समबुद्धयः ते प्राप्नुवन्ति मामेव सर्वभूतहिते रताः। क्लेशोऽधिकतरस्तेषाम् अव्यक्तासक्तचेतसाम् अव्यक्ता हि गतिर्दुःखम् देहवद्भिरवाप्यते। ये तु सर्वाणि कर्माणि मयि सन्न्यस्य मत्पराः अनन्येनैव योगेन मां ध्यायन्त उपासते तेषामहं समुद्धर्ता मृत्युसंसारसागरात् भवामि न चिरात् पार्थ मय्यावेशितचेतसां मय्येव मन आधस्त्व मयि बुद्धिं निवेशय निवसिष्यसि मय्येव अत ऊर्ध्वं न संशयः। अथ चित्तं समाधातुं न शक्नोषि मयि स्थिरम् अभ्यासयोगेन ततो मामिच्छाप्तुं धनञ्जय। अभ्यासेऽप्यसमर्थोऽसि मत्कर्म परमो भव मदर्थमपि कर्माणि कुर्वन् सिद्धिमवाप्स्यसि अथैतदप्यशक्तोऽसि कर्तुं मध्योगमाश्रितः सर्वकर्मफलत्यागं ततः कुरु यतात्मवान् श्रेयो हि ज्ञानमभ्यासात् ज्ञानाध्यानं विशिष्यते ध्यानात् कर्मफलत्यागः त्यागात् शान्तिरनन्तरम् अद्वेष्टा सर्वभूतानां मैत्रः करुण एव च निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः समदुःख सुखक्षमी सन्तुष्ट सततं योगी यतात्मा दृढनिश्चयः मय्यर्पितमनो बुद्धिः यो मद्भक्त स मे प्रियः यस्मान्नो द्विजते लोको लोकान्नो द्विजते च यः हर्षामर्षभयोद्वेगैः मुक्तो यः स च मे प्रियः अनपेक्ष शुचिर्दक्ष उदासीनो गतव्यथः सर्वारम्भपरित्यागी यो मद्भक्त स मे प्रियः यो न हृष्यति न द्वेष्टि न शोचति न काङ्क्षति शुभाशुभपरित्यागी भक्तिमान्यः स मे प्रियः समः शत्रौ च मित्रे च तथा मानापमानयोः शीतोष्णसुखदुःखेषु समः सङ्गविवर्जितः तुल्यनिन्दास्तुतिर्मौनी सन्तुष्टो येन केनचित् अनिकेतः स्थिरमतिर्भक्तिमान् मे अनिकेतः स्थिरमतिर्भक्तिमान् मे प्रियो नरः अनिकेतः स्थिरमतिः भक्तिमान् मे प्रियो नरः ये तु धर्म्यामृतमिदं यथोक्तं पर्युपासते श्रद्धाना मत्परमा भक्तास्तेतीव मे प्रियाः ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे भक्तियोगो नाम द्वादशोऽध्यायः ॐ तत्सत् अथ त्रयोदशोऽध्यायः क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञविभागयोगः श्रीभगवानुवाच इदं शरीरं कौन्तेय क्षेत्रमित्यभिधीयते एतद्यो वेत्ति तं प्राहुः क्षेत्रज्ञ इति तद्विदः Just give me 2 minutes. Anybody is ready for the verse? I think we were doing the 12th verse. No, 13th verse. Anybody is ready? Or anybody would like to take the opportunity to read and explain as well, if they have read? We were in 13th shloka, right? I hope.
Yeah, I think so, Belaji. You are okay to read, right?
Yeah. If anybody would like to take an opportunity, please go ahead. I can continue sharing the screen.
Please go ahead.
So I just read once again the verse 13 and read the last, I think, one or two paragraphs. I think we had done it, 13 shloka, but I will just quickly browse through. Adveshta sarvabhutanam maitrah karuna eva cha nirmamo nirahankarah samadukha sukha kshami. The one who has no hatred for all beings, who has the disposition of a friend, who is compassionate, free from possessiveness, free from I notion, equal in pleasant and unpleasant circumstances, and indeed one who is naturally accommodative. So, Adveshta Sarvabhutana, Maitra, he doesn't have any dvesha for anybody. He's he doesn't have ahankara or mamakara api. Jnani is equal in sukha and dukkha. And the same lakshana, they become sadhana for karma yogi and mumukshu. I will just read the virtue of kshama. It is very, very important and profound. If you want me to read anything previous to that, please let me know. What is kshama? What does it take to remain composed under all hostile situations? Only when you are ready for the worst is it possible, and the worst that can happen is death. This can be handled only by a jnani who knows though time, kala, devours the entire creation, he devours time in the sense that he knows he is free from time and thus devours the whole jagat. Facing death is not an issue for him because there is no death. If you say the body dies, he will say it is dying all the time. The cells are constantly changing, and since the body is objectifiable, its nature is to be destroyed. Drishta nashta svabhavaha. It is not going to die on one particular occasion. It is always changing. The mind is also constantly dying because a thought is always momentary. Kshanika. Atma, on the other hand, is not subject to change because it is not subject to time. Therefore, I does not die. Right at the outset, Lord said, Nashato vidyate bhavaha, na bhavo vidyate sataha. There is no independent existence for the apparent and Atma, which is existence. Sat does not have a bhava, non-existence, which means that it never dies. What dies alone is dying, and this is generally accepted. Only if I dies is there a problem. When the sun sets, we do not mourn its passing because we know that it is the nature of things to change. Once you understand the nature of something, you do not expect it to be different. There is no complaint that, that sugar is sweet or vinegar is sour because that is their nature. The body is changing and so is the mind. It is their nature. But Atma never changes. Again, because that is its nature. Atma can never be made to change, and the body cannot be stopped from changing. Since you cannot change the course of events, why grieve over it? A wise person is unruffled because of this knowledge. Even if a jnani is physically injured, he understands that only his body is harmed. There is no sense of being injured, or if the injury is deliberate, insulted. The physical body may be black and blue, but inside, being awake to the fullness, that is the nature of Atma. He is free from emotional bruise. I repeat the last line. Even if a jnani is physically injured, he understands that only his body is hurt. There is no sense of being injured, or if the injury is deliberate, insulting. The physical body may be black and blue, but inside, being awake to the fullness, that is the nature of Atma. He is free from emotional bruises. Relatively, Kshama is an attitude based on understanding, which can also be seen as forgiveness. We can see how natural this would be for a wise man. But as a value, it is a dangerous concept. Who are we to forgive? The whole world has forgiven us, allowing us to live as we are. This whole notion of forgiveness just creates distance. There is nothing to forgive. Again, we only have to understand one another. All of us are different because of differences in our thinking and backgrounds, and are all in the process of maturing. If you understand that, you will find that nobody is bad or good. Therefore, Kshama means one who is naturally accommodative. So it's a beautiful virtue. Kshama, forgiveness. It is an attitude. And being accommodative. Since the whole creation is mithya and it is changing, there is no use to label anybody or any situation good or bad.
Bela, can you read the first definition of Kshama that Swamiji has said?
Yeah.
In the beginning of this paragraph?
Yeah. What is Kshama? What does it take to remain composed under all hostile situations? Only when you are ready for the worst is it possible. And the worst that can happen is death. This can be handled only by a jnani who knows that though time, kala, devours the entire creation, he devours time in the sense that he knows he is free from time and thus devours the whole jagat. Facing death is not an issue for him because...
Yeah, that's fine, Bela. I just wanted the first sentence. So what he was mentioning as Kshama is not normally that we understand as forgiveness, although that is included, that forgiveness will create a distance. What he's meaning here by Kshama is being accommodative in the most hostile, in all hostile situations. And the worst that can happen is death. So the jnani is in a state of understanding that it is only the body that dies. Everything else dies. The mind, the intellect, all that will die. It is only the Atma that remains eternal. And from that space, he's able to understand that anything hostile that happens to his body or his mind, emotional, humiliation, whatever, he is in that state of complete accommodation. He's accommodating all hostile situations. Because if he's prepared for the worst, which is death, anything less than that is just child's play for him. So he's coming from that understanding. And then the normally understood term Kshama is forgiveness. But he says, Swamiji says rightly, forgiveness creates a distance. Who are we to forgive? So it is more than forgiveness, it is accommodation, which is in the most hostile situations. That is Kshama. Yeah. Thank you.
Beautiful. So it is for both, right? For self as well as for the others. It is only accommodative for our own self as well.
Yeah, it includes himself.
Mhm.
He's
It we normally what we if we have headache or something physical problem, we normally try to see that how we can while doing sadhana or maybe doing prayer or something. So our physical body is also changing. So we have to be accommodative that it's okay. We have to continue with our duties, whether it is physical discomfort. It is the nature of the body.
here. It is not for us to interpret that if we are going through some, say, physical ailment, that we don't we ignore it or accommodate it and not take care of it. I don't think that should be the implication for us as sadhaks, because this body, shariram khalu dharma sadhanam. It is only through this body that we can attain whatever we are supposed to attain. So we have to certainly be pragmatic, practical, and take care of the body with this understanding that the body ultimately will change, and not become hypochondriacal and get so obsessed with the body. Take whatever care is required of the body and then drop it. So I think that should be our approach. This is all these other jnanis lakshanas. Like Gurudev says in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, you cannot just ape the Siddha. See, that is different. Siddha, the rules, regulations, and the way the Siddha functions or the Jnani functions is at a different realm altogether. So just by copying what the Jnani does, we are not going to get anywhere. It is not copying. It is about understanding and keeping that as a yardstick. I am not sure whether I got that point across. The Jnani, for instance, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa or even Ramana Maharshi, they did not really, the bodily affliction did not affect them because they accommodated it in the whole sphere. But you and I, can we just take that aspect and then do that? I think we'd be foolish if we're just doing that without proper understanding, right? I mean, we need to, once we reach that level, yes, it'll happen automatically. But since we are still on the process, we need to protect and preserve our health and body so that we can use that as a tool. So not being completely obsessive with health, you need to take enough care.
Okay.
So beautifully put, Brahmraji. The other day, I was struggling to put my thoughts into words, but I was unable. But you have so smoothly put in words. The other day, when I was talking about taking care of body and mind, I wanted to convey the same message, but I was unable. And you have put it so nicely.
Yeah, I'm glad it helped, because sometimes we might have a misunderstanding saying, oh, I'm having a headache. It is true, when you're having a headache, rather than get so overpowered by the headache, you do what is required. You need to rest, you rest. You need to take a pill, take rest. But you're not getting so overpowered. Keep this understanding in the back of your mind that this is happening only at the body level. I am bigger than this. Then we will not get so overpowered by that.
Yeah, and why you want to get better? Because you have something to achieve. Achieve in the sense you have some goal like moksha, liberation, you want to study more or you want to know more. And that's why I need this body. Because that is the only place Atma can live. And through this vehicle only we can do the further journey. So the mind and body, and where the realization will come in the mind. So if it is unsettled, uh, we won't be able to achieve it. As a sadhak, as rightly you said, as a sadhak, the jnani's way of living would be totally different. So this is the only vehicle and this is the only apparatus where we will get to know about ourselves. And that's why keeping it hale and healthy or in the sound, uh, you have put it very rightly, Ramraj.
Yeah, very much for sharing. संतुष्ट सततं योगी यतात्मा दृढनिश्चयः मय्यर्पितमनो बुद्धिः यो मद्भक्तः स मे प्रियः. Santushtah, the one who is completely satisfied. Satatam, always. Yogi, one who is united. Yatatma, who has mastery over his mind. Dridhanishayah, whose ascertainment is firm. Mayyar, Mai Arpita Manobuddhihi, whose mind and intellect are resolved in me. Yah Mad Bhaktah, he who is my devotee. Saha me priyah, he is beloved to me. Santushtah Satatam Yogi Yatatma Dridha Nishayah Mai Arpita Mano Buddhihi Yah Mad Bhaktah Saha me priyah. The one who is completely satisfied, who is always united, who has mastery over his mind, whose ascertainment is firm, whose mind and intellect are resolved in me, who is my devotee, is beloved to me. Such a jnani is my beloved. Such a jnani, Lord Krishna says, is my beloved, me priyah. The use of the sixth case is exactly as it is when you say Mama Atma, which means simply me Atma. Similarly, when he says Me Priyah, he is beloved to me. It means he is one with me. An example often used to illustrate this kind of genitive is Rahoha Shirah Itivat, like Rahu's head. In Indian astrology, Rahu is a shadow planet consisting only of the head of a dragon. Even though there is no real possession possible here, because there are not two things, one of which can possess the other, we have the expression Rahu's head. Similarly, me priyah, my beloved, is more accurately my Ananda. The most beloved thing in the world is Atma, for those for whose sake everything becomes pleasing. Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Previously, Bhagavan also said, the jnani is myself Gnanu Atma Eva. Here he says Sah Me Priya, which is the same Only here he says bhakta, and there he used the word gnani. So, as it is written, gnani is Bhagwan's priya because he is himself only. He is Parmeshwara and he is my Ananda, as Bhagwan said. Gnani tu Atma eva. Gnani is always satisfied. Satatam santushtah. The Gnani is always satisfied. Satatam is an important word here. Everybody is santushta, happy occasionally, or with reference to some conducive situation. You may be happy with your job, your partner, your children. But if I keep on extending the list, it will come to something you are not happy about. As a samsari, one is happy only with reference to certain things, but not satatam santushtah, not one who is always happy. This, this describes a sannyasi, a gnani, who Shankara says has a sense of adequacy. Alam par pratyaya, with reference to everything. He does not take issue with himself, the world, and God on any account, and is happy with himself. Generally, we have not resolved our issues of contention, even with God, let alone with the world, where we have numerous things to settle with various people and situations. And with regard to our own mind, body, and senses, we have many accounts to settle. I repeat this. And with regard to our own mind, body, and senses, we have many accounts to settle. In this condition, it is not possible to have a constant alam pratyaya. So beautiful. So satatam nirantaram, satatam santushtah, the one who is always happy, not only with himself, but also with everybody around him or in any situation. There are only two things about which one can really say enough. One is food. No matter how much you may like something, after you have eaten a certain quantity, you say enough. That is why there is a breaking of voice. Please let me know if it is too much disturbing. I repeat the last line. No matter how much you may like something, after you have eaten a certain quantity, you say alam, enough. That is why they say giving food is one of the two best acts of charity. If you feed somebody, he will eventually say enough. Whereas money, for example, is never alam, nor is any other thing except Brahma Jnana. Even empirical knowledge, apara vidya, can never be alam because the more you know, the more you realize the extent of your ignorance. The sense of alam can only come when you know that you are Purna, complete, because that alone cannot be improved upon. Of these two acts of charity, Vedanta Vijnana is greater because it creates an alam pratyaya which, unlike that created by having enough food, is not temporary. I repeat, this is very, very important and profound. There I am repeating the whole paragraph. There are only two things about which one can really say enough. One is food. No matter how much may you like something, after you have eaten a certain quantity, you say alam, enough. That is why they say giving food is one of the two best acts of charity. If you feed somebody, he will eventually say enough. Whereas money, for example, is never allowed, nor is any other thing except Brahmagnana. Even empirical knowledge, aparavidya, can never be alam, because the more you know, the more you realize the extent of your ignorance. The sense of alam can only come when you know that you are Purna, complete, because that alone cannot be improved upon. Of these two acts of charity, Vedanta Vijnana is greater because it creates an alam pratyaya, which, unlike that created by having enough food, is not temporary. Anyone would like to share? Santushta Satatam is a person who has settled all his issues of contention. As a sannyasi, all he has to do is maintain his body, for which he requires food, etc. If it is there, he is satisfied. Even if it is not, he is satisfied. And whether he gets something nutritious and palatable or quite the opposite, he is happy. By mere practice, one can acquire this capacity, but it is very natural for a person who has settled account with himself. Very important statement. If you are satisfied with your own self, then it becomes easy. For Jnani or Sannyasi, it is very, very natural. He is Nitya Santushtaha.
For us, we have a long list of to-do things. I have to do this, 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 and that. Whereas for a jnani, he's got that alam pratyaya. What he has to do, there's nothing much he has to do. He's only pursuing knowledge. Whereas for us, we have so many things. Once we finish one, there is something else that crops up. So that to-do list continues. Of course, it doesn't mean that we should stop doing what we are doing. We are all in the karma yogi mode. So we can't escape but do things. But the difference between the sannyasi and the sadhak is this. He is just so content with himself. That need to do things in order to satisfy himself is not there. The only thing, basic necessity, is food. And even if he does not get that, he's satisfied. Because he comes from the space of being Purna. We come from the space of being not Purna, and therefore we need to do X, Y, Z to satisfy ourselves. But in the Karma Yogi mode, while doing that, we understand why we're doing what we're doing is mainly for our Antakarana Shuddhi. So that realization will keep us afloat and not get caught up in the rat race of saying, oh, I'm not enough. I have to do this in order to complete myself. So that will be the difference between a normal person working and a karma yogi working. And how the jnani functions. Jnani has this complete purnatva that he comes from.
And this, Brahmaraji, could you say more about this Brahmagnana and Paravidya and Vedanta Vijnana? So for that, he is for that, he doesn't say enough for that matter, right? The Jnani.
Because he knows it is only through that he can. We are talking of a jnani who's already attained, then there is no need. For him, even knowledge is not. He is knowledge. But if you're talking of a Vividisha sannyasi who's on the path and he's not yet recognized himself, then yes, he will continue to pursue knowledge. Is that what you were asking?
Yes, yes, yes. Paravidya can never be alam, because the more you know, the more you realize
You
the
don't,
extent
yeah.
of your ignorance. Yeah.
But even with knowledge, like what Nana was mentioning yesterday, how much you would want to acquire. Ultimately, the jnani, the sannyasi who is in the process of becoming a jnani, that the Vividisha sannyasi, has to do nididhyasana. It's not just jnana samupad, not just acquiring knowledge. He has to do the Akshara Brahma Upasana. Then that being, he gets to the state of being, recognizing himself. Otherwise, it is just going to be bookish knowledge, which is not going to be worth it. You might read all the Upanishads, you might read everything, but if you are not doing the Upasana, not doing the Nididhyasana about it, then it is futile. That should be the guiding factor there. So that alam pratyaya for knowledge is certainly not there, because he needs to know, but it is not knowing endlessly. That is why they said even if you just stick to Bhagavad Gita is fine.
Yeah. Tatatam can also be taken as qualifying yogi. There are two meanings for yogi based on the two meanings of the root yuj. If the root is taken in the sense of to master or control, nirodhane, nirodhena or nirodhane, kshamyata, nirodhane, a yogi is one who has yoga, which is defined as chitta vritti nirodha, control over the thoughts. The second meaning of the root yuj is to unite. That is the sense in which it is used here. He is a yogi because of his jnana of his identity with Ishvara. He is also a yogi with reference to his mind, in that he has tranquility, chitta samadhana, but not by the force of his will. The once restless mind was made relatively composed by Viveka and Karma Yoga. Then, when it was exposed to Vedanta Pramana, it fulfilled its purpose in the recognition of the truth of itself. It poses no problem for him, since he does not identify with it as I. Being very clear about the fact that he is not the mind, he does not judge himself on the basis of mental conditions. He is Satatam Yogi, always a yogi. Everybody has experiences of tranquility, Chitta Samadhana, and in that sense is a yogi of occasionally. Here Bhagavan is describing a jnani, which is why he can say Satatam Yogi. So it is beautifully mentioned. I will just read further so it becomes. The word Satatam is placed between the two words Santushtaha and Yogi in order to modify both. This technique is called Kakakshi Nyaya. The analogy of the crow's eye. The eye of a crow does not move in its socket. So, when it turns its head to see, it can look as though a single eyeball goes to the other socket. It is the same here. A single modifier placed between two nouns can modify the meaning of both nouns. Another analogy for the same situation is that of a lamp on the threshold. Delhi Deepa Nyaya. It simultaneously lights up the inside and outside. Similarly here, Satatam simultaneously modifies Santushtaha and Yogi. So it is very beautifully explained by Swamiji that the Santushtah Satatam Yogi, how important that Nirantarta, Nityata is. Like the Delhi Deepa, when we put on the Barsak, the Deepa, it will light inside as well as outside. So that Nirantarta, if we keep between the Santushtah and Yogi, then it will be applicable for both. He is continuously satisfied and he is continuously yogi. Anyone would like to share? He is always tranquil because he has mastery over his mind. Satata yogi is one whose tranquility, chitta samadhana, is constant. It is possible only he has nothing to do with his mind. I believe there is a little. He is always tranquil because he has a mastery over his mind. Satatam yogi is one whose tranquility, chitta samadhana, is constant, which is possible only because he has nothing to do with his mind. He is also yatatma, the one who has a mastery over his mind. Here, Atma refers to the mind, and his mind is Yata, mastered, and he is Satatam Yogi because he is Yatatma, one who has mastery over his mind. The nature of the mind is to be restless and easily affected by external situations. When the mind is resolved in himself and therefore not subject to this nature, the one who has such a mind is called Satatam Yogi. So because of his tranquility or the control over his senses, he is Satatam Yogi because he has nothing to do with his mind. He is one whose knowledge is well determined. Dradha Nishchayaha, one whose knowledge is very well determined. He has a clear ascertainment, Nishchaya, of the nature of Atma, and that is firm, Dridha, in the sense that it is free from doubts. This is not adamancy, but rather a clarity about the nature of the self. When he sees clearly that Atma is Brahman, the knot of the heart, Hridaya Granthi is cut, Vidyate. Between Atma and the Deha, there is a Granthi, a tie, brought about by avidya, ignorance. From that comes Kama, followed by Karma, old and new. By this three-stranded string, avidya, Kama, Karma, avidya, Kama, Karma, together called Hridaya Granthi. An individual is bound and is released when that knot is untied. I repeat, from that comes karma, followed by karma, old and new. By this three-stranded string, avidya, kama, karma, together called Hridaya Granthi, an individual is bound and is released when that knot is untied. Doing varieties of things only makes it more knotted, since action stems from a failure to understand the original problem. As in untying a tangled ball of yarn, pulling at the wrong threads will only make the ball more tangled. You must get the hang of it. Then the knot will resolve. Spiritually also, you must first understand that seeking a solution within samsara is only complicating the problem. So it is like pulling the wrong end when we seek the solution in the samsara. The problem is ignorance, and to determine that you need viveka. Dharma, artha, kama, and moksha are the four strands hanging from the tangled ball of samsara. If you pull on the first three, you are tightening the knots. I repeat, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha are the four strands hanging from the tangled ball of samsara. If you pull on the first three, you are tightening the knots. Pursuing artha and kama only creates further problems, and dharma resolves the problems to an extent. It does not untie the fundamental knot, Hridaya Granthi. For that, you have to remove avidya. When you do, the knot resolves because there is no longer any doubt about whether Atma is Brahman or limited, Karta or Karta, Bhokta or Abhokta. I repeat, there was a breaking of voice. Pursuing artha and kama only creates further problems. And though dharma resolves the problems to an extent, it does not untie the fundamental knot, Hridaya Granthi. For that, you have to remove avidya. When you do, the knot resolves because there is no longer any doubt about whether Atma is Brahman or limited, Karta or Akarta, Bhokta or Abhokta. These are to be seen severally because there is one contention that even though Atma is a Karta, it is still a Bhokta, and another that Atma is Anuparimana, of the size of an atom. Even if you say that Atma is Brahman, does it have attribute? Is it Saguna or is it free from them? Is it Nirguna? And even if you know it is Nirguna Brahma, should you do karma for the sake of moksha or not? These are some of the many possible doubts. None of them exist for the one who is a Dridhanishaya with reference to Atma. This is a beautiful virtue to understand. Dridhanishaya. In Jnani, it is the very nature, very swabhava. Like Buddha, when he started his meditation, there is a beautiful shloka, I forgot, I do not know, but that says that whatever happens to my physical body, I am not going to move from my seat. So that was the Dridha Nishchaya. And as beautifully explained by Swamiji about the Hridaya Granthi, it is nothing but kama, karma, kama, Ajnana and karma. Avidya, kama and karma. So when that Hriday Granthi, that knot is untied, then automatically there is that Dridha Nishchaya. I think
I think
Brahmaraji
the
was...
Hridaya Granthi, Swamiji mentioned, is the knot that ties the Jiva and the Ishvara with Avidya. That is the basic knot. That is the basic, that Granthi that is there. From there, you have these three strands, so to say, of Kama, Karma, and Dharma. Is that Dharma?
No, Avidya, Kama and
Avidya, Kama, and Karma. Because from the Avidya, from that comes Kama, followed by Karma, old and new. But this three-stranded string, Avidya, Kama, Karma, together called the Hridaya Granthi. You're right. An individual is bound and is released, right? So this three-stranded knot is not, we are knotted, the Jiva and the Ishvara are knotted by this three-stranded string of Avidya, Kama, and Karma.
So we need to remove only the Avidya, which automatically brings these two also untied. If there is knowledge, then this Kama and Karma does not have. We continue because of Avidya, that by doing this thing, we will be released.
It's true.
In the last paragraph, he told, no, okay, you have to be equanimity should be there, control over senses, and then it will be resolved.
And the fundamental knot, as Brahmaraji has basically between, that is the avidya, that is the ajnanata, about the dvaita bhavna between Ishvara and Atma. That is the fundamental knot. Anyone would like to share? Kindly share. It's a very, very beautiful, and I'm sure everyone has a different perception of the way Swamiji has explained. Okay, I'll go further. Mayyar Pita Mano Buddhihi. Manas and Buddhi have two distinct functions and are therefore mentioned separately here. The nature of the mind is to vacillate between one thing and its opposite. Sankalpa Vikalpatmakam Manaha.
Jai Gurudev Bela, I can take over if you require me to.
Yes, I
will
will
take-
appreciate. Yeah.
No problem.
Dhanyavad, Prabharaji.
Just give me a second. I'll share. You can continue to share. Let me just share my screen so it'll be easier.
Yeah. It is 386 page. So, Maya, Pita, Mano, Buddhi, Manas and Buddhi, two distinct functions and are therefore separately here. The nature of the mind is to vacillate between one thing and opposite Sankalpa vikalpa mana, vikalpatma manah. Buddhi, on the other hand, is characterized by resolve or determined knowledge. Both of these, Bhagavan says, are surrendered to me. Mai arpite. All doubts are resolved in the wake of the knowledge of Parmeshwara. Manas, Buddhi, everything is placed in Paramatma. That is, there are no doubts because the person is awake to Paramatma. This is the reason for his Dridhanishaya. Similarly, he is a yogi because he is Yatatma. This cause-effect relationship between two words is called Hetu, Hetumada Bhavaha. The cause, Hetu,
Sorry, I'm sharing screen, so you will not be able to. 1 second.
yeah, I think you have to go further down. '86 page, I believe. Yeah, here, from here. Mayarpitam Manobuddhi,
Yeah,
you
I will
can read.
start from.
Yeah. Dhanyavad, Brahmaraj.
Mayarpita mano buddhihi. Manas and buddhi have two distinct functions and are therefore mentioned separately here. The nature of the mind is to vacillate between one thing and its opposite. Sankalpa vikalpatmakam manaha. Buddhi, on the other hand, is characterized by resolve or determined knowledge. Both of these, Bhagavan says, are surrendered to me, mai arpite. All doubts are resolved in the wake of the knowledge of Parameshwara. Manas, Buddhi, everything is placed in Paramatma. That is, there are no doubts because the person is awake to Paramatma. This is the reason for his Dridha Nishchaya. Similarly, he is a yogi because he is Yatatma. This cause-effect relationship between two words is called Hetu Hetumad Bhava. The cause, Hetu, is that he is a Mayarpita Manobuddhihi. The result of that, the thing that has the cause inherent in it, Hetumat, is his Dridha Nishchaya. This is one of the technical expressions used to help us understand the Shastra. So here the cause is the Mayarpita, the fact that he has offered his mind and buddhi to Ishvara. That is the Mayarpita Mano Buddhihi. The result is his Dridha Nishchaya. What is the Dridha Nishchaya? I think we saw that before, right? Dridha Nishchaya is one whose knowledge is very well determined. Because he has offered his mind and intellect to Ishvara, and it is without any doubts. That is the cause. The effect is that he has the Dridha Nishchaya. He has a clear ascertainment, Nishchaya, of the nature of Atma, and that is firm, Dridha, in the sense that it is free from doubts. This is not adamancy, but rather a clarity about the nature of the self. So that is the Hetu. Hetu is the cause, and Hetumat is the effect. So this is one of the technical expressions used in Shastra. That is used to help understand the Shastra. Such a jnani is my devotee and is very dear to me. The one who is like this, Bhagavan says, is my devotee. Mad bhaktaha. Whenever Bhagavan uses the word my, there is a potential problem. It implies that there is something different from Bhagavan, as when you say, my servant, the servant is different from you. When he says he is my devotee, mad bhaktaha, and is beloved to me, same priyaha, it looks as though the Lord is partial to those who praise him like anyone else who is vulnerable to flattery. If sugar were personified and you were to say, "Oh, sugar, you are so sweet," it would not get flattered because it is sweet by nature. If you tell a person he is sweet, however, he can feel good about it because he knows how many problems he has, and for the time being, he can forget them. Praise of Bhagavan is always inadequate. When we say he is all compassion and yet have very little understanding of compassion, how much weight can those words carry? With our small fraction of compassion, we stretch our imagination to all compassion. It is the same for omniscience or any other absolute virtue. Since we do not know anything about it, our talking about it has little meaning. It is like Einstein's driver telling him what a wonderful scientist he is. Such praise only has meaning if it comes from a colleague or superior. Otherwise, it always conveys something less than what he is. Praising Bhagavan with a limited knowledge, the individual mind cannot even approach what he deserves. If he gets flattered by that, he has a problem. But Bhagavan does not get flattered because he knows that he is much more than what you can say, whatever you say. If this is understood, how can the Lord say, "He is beloved to me, he is my devotee"? This is the basis for all sects of duality. In this expression, there are no two separate entities called Krishna or his devotee intended. The person he is talking about is Santushtaha Satatam Yogi. That can only be a jnani. If he is a simple devotee, a karma yogi, he will be a Santushtaha relatively, but not Satatam Santushtaha. He can also be a yogi to some degree, but not Satatam Yogi. And he cannot be a Dridhanishchaya at all because, as a devotee, he will be plagued with doubts about his identity with Ishvara. He is speaking only of a jnani here, not a bhakta. The jnani is beloved to Bhagavan in the sense that he is non-separate from himself. When someone is beloved to you, where do you see this belovedness? It does not exist in any given attribute of the person, but in your attitude. In his or her presence, or even at the thought of the person, you experience yourself as totally accepting and accepted. Two individuals resolve in love, and each becomes an object of love for the other. There is unity, and that emotional identity is revealed by the word Priya. Saying someone is beloved to you is saying he is one with you. Here, even though the jnani is recognized as an individual with one mind, one set of senses, still, Bhagavan says he is essentially one with me. Therefore, my devotee is beloved to me. Mad bhaktaha same priyaha. So beautifully explained by Swamiji. When he says Mad bhaktaha doesn't mean there is duality there, doesn't mean jnani is separate from Bhagavan and that Bhagavan is getting flattered by the praises of the jnani. No one can adequately praise Bhagavan because he is all virtues in absolute measure. So someone who is not a jnani, who is an ajnani from an avidya standpoint, like a karma yogi or someone else, a normal bhakta, when he is praising Bhagwan, it is similar to how Einstein's driver is praising him, saying, "You are very great. You are a great scientist." That praise has no meaning because he's coming from the standpoint of avidya. He does not know the true. He's not a scientist himself, so he does not know uh, the extent of Einstein's scientific knowledge. So that praise will become inadequate. But a contemporary, another scientist who is either his colleague or his superior, that praise will be considered authentic. So similarly here, since Jnani is none other than Ishvara, Bhagwan says, Jnani tu mad bhaktaha same priyaha. He is beloved to me and he is dear to me. It is not coming from the standpoint of duality, rather it is coming from the standpoint of the, the fact that there's no difference between the Jnani and Ishvara.
Hari Om, Brahmaraji. I don't know whether it is related to this one or my kind of wonderment I have about the Dridhanishcheta, that these asuras, they all were, when they were doing the penance, they had that Dridhanishchaya, right? They did such a, and they got the boons. So their Dridhanishcheta was different, right? Because it was for Artharthi they were.
Yeah. The Dridha Nishchaya, as we normally understand, is having a well ascertained mind, right? But here in this context, the Dridha Nishchaya is well ascertained knowledge which is rooted in that Atma, which there is no doubt that he is Atma, he is Ishvara. That is the Dridha Nishchaya of a Jnani. That is what is mentioned in this context. But
Yeah, and sorry.
yes, sir, go ahead.
Um, and Asuras, they did believe in, they were Astikas, they believed in Devas. And that's why they, with the Drudhanashaya, they could pray.
Hmm. But they were praying for their own. If you look at the Puranas, all the Asuras, they wanted to be powerful. They wanted to be venerated. And whatever they did, like whoever it was, Ravana or Hiranyakashipu, all of them, they did for acquiring more powers. They were more samsaric, no?
That's right.
They were not
No,
following.
the word Drudhanashaya in general
Yeah.
context, they had total faith in God or
Hmm.
Shiva or whoever they were praying, they had total faith in. So they were Astikas, though they used those energies for not a very good purpose. They acquired those energies, what Devatas also didn't have, but they used it for different purpose.
It was just a wonderment because they were so tamasic and still they could sit in one place for meditation or, I mean, uh, that's what is just, this is just out of the context, but it just came to my mind
Hmm. It
that
is
with
like
those qualities they were able to do, why can't we do? Although they were asuras, no, they had all thumbs. I'm sorry, you were saying something.
it is like if you have the scale, positive and negative, zero is in the center, and you have on one side it's all positive, and the other side it's negative. They had all, can't call them negative in the sense that their intention was to destroy. But here, this is from the Puranas, no? What we're talking of is Vedanta here. So with respect to Vedanta, um,
Yeah. Here Bhagwan,
so whether
Swamiji is
Vedanta
beautifully
talks of, Vedanta talks
Jnani only.
uh,
Yeah.
of asuras and devas and all of that. That of course comes from the Puranas. The thing for us, as you were asking this, I was just thinking, we have a knowledge base. Part of it is coming from the Vedanta, part of it is from the Puranas. So here we are trying to synthesize both of them. We're trying to synthesize, bring together and understand what we've learned, what we understand from the Puranas, and what we're understanding from the Vedanta. But here, from the Vedantic aspect, since there is only one, there is no duality there. So even the fact that asuras, devas, all of that becomes superfluous with respect to, in the perspective of Vedanta, all that becomes part of Maya, part of the illusion, part of the tapestry of creation.
So beautiful. Very true. Yeah.
Isn't it? We're trying to
Correct.
understand these
Mm.
Vedantic aspects with respect to the Puranas that we are aware of. But when we come from the understanding that here in Vedanta, you are the subject, the only subject that is spoken of is you. You or I, that is it. There is no other. The Puranas become superfluous there. Isn't it? The Puranas are only a means, I think, um, to bring in all those aspects of dharma, dharma down to the common man for them to understand. It was through a story form they had brought in some of the Vedantic truths and the aspects of dharma, so that people could relate to them and then emulate all the dharmic values. I suppose that was the 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 intention of the Puranas. But Vedanta is completely about Atma Vidya, is Tattva Chintana,
Very true. Very true.
isn't it?
And if you've seen, these analogies are given, right, to express the bad qualities or the asuric qualities in you in the form of stories, whereby people can understand it well, as rightly said.
Yeah,
Because
that is why, excuse me, that is why even the Ravana was very different personality, but he was a great devotee of Shiva. That's why some good qualities made him uh, possible to get boon.
Mm. Yeah.
Here we have to focus more on the nirantarta and the contentment, right, Pramaraji? If we have that satatam and santushtava, then that dridhanishya automatically comes for the freedom or for the moksha.
Here, Dridha Nishchaya is not as much as we understand it in the normal parlance as determined. I'll just go back to that. The Dridha Nishchaya, as Swamiji explained here, is one whose knowledge is very well determined. It is not he is well determined. This is the effect. You see, here the knowledge that he has is so well determined without any doubts. It is not a quality of his determination. They're not talking of his determination here, which what normally we understand, Dridha Nishchaya. Here, the knowledge is so clear that there is no doubts. It's so free from doubts. That is the determined knowledge. That is the Dridha Nishchaya.
So that Advaita Bhavana, that
Yeah.
that is
And
so
see,
strong.
that
I
is
mean,
why
clear.
clear. See, that is why he says, he again is making it clear. He's saying this is not adamancy, but rather a clarity about the nature of the self. The asuras that you were talking about, they come from adamancy. But whereas here, he is he's just clear about the nature of the self. That is the clear knowledge, without a shade of doubt, that he is nothing but Ishvara. That is the determined knowledge. And how does he get that? That is the effect. He gets it by Mayarpita Mano Buddhi. So he offers his mind, Buddhi, to him. That is where he is that Satatam Yogi. He's always tranquil, and because he has nothing to do with his mind. He's also Yatatma because he has a mastery over his mind.
He has already offered that Indriya Nigraha to the Ishwar.
I wanted to add here, like in our discussion just now, we are talking about asuras. Again, in the discussion, we find that when we say the asuras are tamasic, then I think they did a lot of tapas, and that requires a lot of discipline. I mean, they would not get that powerful unless they were disciplined enough to do their sadhana to such a great extent that Ravana would also grant Shiva would also grant certain boons to Ravana. So, I, uh, I, I mean, simply labeling them as tamasic or something like that, I don't know. I'm, I feel that they had a lot of discipline too, otherwise they would not get powerful. We may use our power, our knowledge to pray for whatever we require, like a child gets good marks so that he can go into IIT or whatever. But they may have asked for powers for themselves to become more powerful. So, I mean, I don't know. When it comes to being tamasic or something, I would not want to put that kind of label on them. They must have been terribly disciplined to do their tapas, their sadhana to such a great extent. I don't, that's my thought process. I may be wrong.
So should we continue here?
Trigunas are all the time anyway changing. The whole Prakriti is under the control of Trigunas. But we have certain deep down tendencies, vrittis. Those vrittis, when they become tamoguni, so even under the influence of sattva or some determination, you do lot of sadhana and everything. But if your manovrittis, deep down your impressions are so strong of the tamoguni nature, so you will use all those sadhana tapasya also for to fulfill those tamoguni tendencies. So maybe Ravana was doing lot of tapasya and lot of discipline and everything, because anyway all of us continuously we are going through sattva rajas tamas. But if deep down the tendencies which are propelling us in certain direction, if they are of predominantly tamasic nature, then your whole day-to-day activities, your goals, everything becomes more focused towards that your tendencies only, to strengthen the tendencies. That's what I feel. So trigunas are, we all of us, we are under the influence of trigunas, but the tendencies will decide your final actions and goals every moment to moment. That is Jai Gurudev. Brahmaraji, please explain this in a better way. What Patru Bhaiya
Predominantly, if they were tamasic by nature, then how would they be able to do such heavy penance and heavy sadhana to get so powerful? Uh, I mean, at a point of time, they must be having some amount of other gunas in them to take them to that level of power. They could not have achieved so much by being tamasic.
Yeah, I don't
Tamasic
think they
means
were
lethargy and inertia.
lethargic, but they were pursuing tamasic sukha. See, I think in Patanjali Yoga Sutras, they talk of three kinds of happiness: sattvic happiness, rajasic, and tamasic happiness. The happiness that you get out um, of destroying others or troubling others, that sadistic happiness is tamasic. So they were pursuing that kind of happiness. That was the difference, I suppose, between the asuras and the so-called devas, in the sense that they were not pursuing sattvic happiness. They had, of course, they had the resolve. Otherwise, they would not be, like Percy G rightly mentioned. They're not coming from the tamasic tendency is there, but that tendency is not as lethargy as we normally understand tamas as. They did all those penances, but unfortunately, they were after tamasic happiness, tamasic sukha.
There is an
They,
I would
explanation.
like to.
Yeah,
hmm?
there is an explanation about this in astrology. In your D1 chart, that is the Janma Kundali, you are born as the Sattvic person, but the same energies get converted to be used in a demonic way, and that is shown in the Navamsha chart. Uh, this this conversion of energy, I mean, you would get that energy, you would acquire that energy, but it will be used in a sattvic way or in a demonic way. It's shown in your Navamsha. That is a deeper understanding of your chart. It is shown in the chart.
Hmm.
I would like to add a little bit to this. Ravana and Hiranyakashyap and all, they had a purpose for that avatar. So it was already programmed in them that this is how they are going to live their life. And ultimately, their aim was to get to Narayana. And Gurudev says, no, the shortest cut is to go the opposite way. Even Rajima had
Yes,
said no. So,
you are right, Sumaji.
so where are we here in this? Even Ravana was under the influence of his avatar, intentions of his avatar. So, yeah, okay, they were disciplined, they were drita, all that is very nice. It's like for us to take the good qualities, like Gurudev says, no, there is so much to learn even from terrorists. Look at their commitment for their cause. So it is something like that, I feel.
I agree with Sumaji fully. Here, they were born because of some purpose behind it, but their aim was ultimately to get dissolved into Narayana only.
No,
But
the
for us,
question over here was how could these people do tapas? Because for tapas to do we need sattva or the because were those people sattvic, then how come they would have had these kind of thoughts of demonic qualities they would have had, and if they were tamasic or rajasic, how could they do such a you know tapas? How could they do so much of
They are not the
expensive?
doers. It is Narayana who is working through them. So where are they?
No, what about us then? Why?
Even
See,
even us,
even
even
sitting for
us,
a meditation for a longer time, it is so difficult for us. Uh, Are we worse than those people?
I think so. Even us, I've come
We
to
have
this
got deviated quite a
understanding.
lot from where we were supposed to be. Although I'm not sure how useful this understanding of why the asuras were like that will help us in this knowledge. I'm not really sure. So maybe we'll have to redirect our thought process and get back on track. That's my understanding.
Correct.
No, let's not get deviated. Uh, I'm not sure whether it really will help. They were there, we all know that we create our blueprint. The asuras from the Puranas, we know that they've been cursed. Jaya, Vijaya, because of the curse, they became all those pairs of demons, Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, and all of that. So it's only to redeem that little curse that they had to go through that birth and things like that. So in the context of creation, and let's understand that all that is again in the context of creation, in the world, in the samsaric world. But here we are focused on tattva chinta, on the self. So when we get caught up, we'll understand. I mean, let's just wonder at certain things. We may not be able to analyze and explain everything. Pairs of opposites exist in creation. Therefore, asuri gunas, daivi gunas exist. They are but part of nature. Without the opposites, the world cannot function. If there is only goodness, just a simple example is if a tree has only the potential to grow and it'll go on growing, then we'll have only tall, tall trees. They go up to the heaven, up to the skies. Every tree has also some factors called inhibins that restrict the growth. That is the opposite factor. It's called the yin yang aspect of creation. So with that, when you understand that the yin yang is there embedded in creation, therefore the asari gunas, the daivi gunas are there, then we will not get so caught up in trying to analyze them. Whereas here, our thought process, we have to redirect, and we're going beyond creation. We're going to the source of creation, right? So maybe we should step back and then say, hey, where are we going in our discussions? So just that thought, maybe we'll contemplate upon that. There's nothing wrong. I'm not saying right, wrong at all. It is but natural that that's the whole reason why we are here. This forum is for us to clarify our doubts so that we get that dridha nishchaya, that well ascertained knowledge of who we truly are.
Yes, Dhanyavad Brahmaraji. Kshamyatam, because that was the basic fundamental mistake I did in understanding the word Dhrida Nishchaya. It is about the knowledge, the firm knowledge,
Which is good,
not
no?
about the
See, now we've
person.
got that clarity. That is fine. I mean, that is why we are doing the Manana, so that we can get that well-determined, well-ascertained knowledge. So this is perfectly fine. I mean, I'm not this whatever I've said is not to um, put down anything at all. We are here in the forum, but again, we just have to understand that where are we going? Are we um, directing ourselves, our discussion towards, it's just a matter of understanding, I think. That's all. Just wanted to mention that. So in future also, when we get such questions, then we can understand, oh, this is where it is coming from. Am I really going to benefit from this? By understanding. I mean, they were there. Forget about asuras. Let's look at the asuri gunas that we have. We have all those negative tendencies. The asuras are nothing outside of us. They are within us. Even the Mahabharata that is so beautifully described is actually happening inside of us. We have the Duryodhana tendency, we have the Krishna tendency, we have the Arjuna tendency, we have all those tendencies within us. So it is for us to look within and introspect within and do a self-appraisal and move on towards greater understanding of ourselves. So shall we close here? Is anyone wanting to say anything before we close? One more thing regarding what I mentioned as the next session of Upanishads will be on Friday. Maybe like what Nana said, um, he would prefer it on a Sunday. So I know it is going to be a little tough for people who have a lot of things to do on the Sunday. I would request if because it's anyway going to be on the YouTube, could listen to the link later. Maybe for now we will stay on doing it on a Sunday. Is that okay? There was also a suggestion of doing it on a Friday evening. I'm not sure how many of you would be good with that. That you can, we still have time before Friday. So maybe we can think about whether we can have it on a Friday evening. Jai Gurudev.
Just a suggestion, Brahmaraji. We can have Sunday Nanaji as a live session, and Friday, those who could not make it, we can have the video session, which is the same Zoom meeting. We can have, and we can.
You mean in the morning during the Manana time?
No, Brahmaraji. Sunday morning, as Nanaji wants at his time, 9:30 to 10:30, he will go live and he will have the session with whoever is present. And then whoever could not make it, they can watch on Friday together as a group, the same group. Whoever can, I mean, the same recording we can watch. Like Sunday, if we go for long Kriya, we also may not be able to watch. So we can watch on Friday evening as you have suggested, or whichever the other comfortable time, the same recorded session.
Yeah. Okay, we'll take a look at how that's possible. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.